Hi, this is Tamara at mooglyblog.com, and today I'm going to be demonstrating how to crochet the Queens Crossbody Bag, which is a free pattern you'll find on mooglyblog.com. You can look for it in your favorite search engine, or go to the description for this video, where we've linked to the written pattern as well as all of the supplies you need. To make this pattern, I used a USI 5.5mm crochet hook and 2 skeins of Lily Sugar and Cream in contrasting colors, 1 skein in each color. You'll also want to have stitch markers handy, and you can add the handle or strap of your choice in any length you desire. I've linked to the one that I used in the free written pattern on mooglyblog.com, but you can attach whatever kind of strap or handle you prefer. Now, you'll want to be sure to follow along with the written pattern when you're making the Queens Crossbody Bag, and be sure to read through the notes. So let's go ahead and get started making our own Queens Crossbody Bag. First, let's take a quick look at the finished Queens Crossbody Bag. Here you can see one side. This is actually the side we make first. We make this one as panel A. Then we work the bottom and sides. And then we do our 1 yarn break, reattach our yarn down here, and make the second panel up the back. As we make this panel, we'll be attaching to those sides so that essentially we'll be working this entire bag in rows, but we will only have 4 ends to weave in when we're all done. And no seaming. It's all done. When we get to the very top, we do work the very top just a few rounds to finish it off. And as we do that, we leave these 2 holes, one on each side, that allow us to attach, as I say, whatever handle you prefer. You can crochet one, you can purchase one, switch them out, whatever you like. I like to have several different lengths on hand so I can use the bag however I like. So I have not lined this one, as you can see here. This is a piece that I take with me to teach this pattern, but if you wanted to line your bag, you absolutely could. This is a really wonderful fabric. While we're working with 2 colors, you can see it's pretty solid, but if you wanted to, you could absolutely get a finger through there. So if you're going to put anything small in there like crochet hooks, you will want to line yours. So let's go ahead and get started. As I mentioned, the notes for this pattern are very important, so let's go over them pretty quickly together here. First things first, you'll want to keep a stitch marker in the first and last half double crochet stitch of each row to help keep track of where you are. This is true throughout the pattern and will become even more important as we go on. Also, the slip stitches in the second panel of the bag are all worked into row 4 of the sides of the bag. Their purpose is to join the panel to the sides. Do not crochet into those slip stitches, just the 25 stitches starting and ending with half double crochets. So, might not make much sense now, but as we continue, that will obviously make more sense when we get to that second panel. And finally, our final note here, to change colors at the end of the row, you'll want to finish the last stitch of the row by working the last yarn over with the new color. A pretty standard way to change new colors within a pattern or make stripes, but I still wanted to point it out. We will be using a few special stitches today, including the woven treble stitch, which is a stitch I've actually come up with for this stitch pattern. We'll be crocheting in the 3rd loop of a half double crochet and doing a seamless join, but I'll be going over all of those with you here today. So we're going to start off with our first panel of the bag and color A. So in our original bag, color A is the hot purple. So this will be the majority of the color that we see in our bag, and we will use this entire skein to make this bag. So with our color A, we start with, of course, a slip knot on our hook, and we chain 26. So I'm not going to make quite as large of a bag today. I'm just going to be making a small sample size. So I'm just going to chain a few here, but you should chain a full 26. Now after you've chained 26, you'll skip the chain closest to the hook and half double crochet in the next stitch. So when I do that, I like to crochet into the underneath hump of the chain rather than under the top 2 loops. I find this gives me a much nicer edge here to work into later, which is something we are going to do in this pattern. So you can work into whichever part of the chain you prefer, but I'll work into that underneath hump. As I said, I'm going to skip the chain closest to the hook, go to the next chain, and put a half double crochet right in that stitch. Now, since this is the first stitch of our round, or row rather, I should say, I'm going to go ahead and grab a couple stitch markers and put one of them right in the top of that very first stitch. Then, if we go back to our instructions, it says to single crochet in the next 23 chains and half double crochet in the last chain. So we single crochet across until there's 1 chain left and put a half double crochet in that chain. Again, I'm going to continue to work into that underneath loop but you can work into whichever part of the chain you prefer. Just do try to be consistent all the way across. I'll see you as we approach the end here of row 1. So here I am with just one chain left on my little sample, so I'm going to go ahead and put a half double crochet right in that very last stitch right there. So for your first row, you should have a total of 25 stitches, half double crochet, 23 single crochets, one half double crochet right at the end. Yours, of course, will be a little bit longer than mine. I'm just doing a little sample. So then we're ready to begin row 2. So for row 2, we'll want to turn, and then we're going to chain 3 and count it as our first double crochet substitute. Now, that is the standard way to do it. Personally, I prefer to use a different double crochet substitute rather than the chain 3. The chain 3 is sort of the most basic way to do it, and if you want to do that way, that's totally fine. That will count as your first stitch. You put your stitch marker right in the top of that third chain. That first stitch is considered worked, and we move on from there. However, the way I prefer to do it, let me pull those back out, is to use a chainless starting double crochet. So again, if you prefer to chain 3, that's totally fine. I'm just going to show you my method that I prefer. I'm going to go ahead and get it turned again here, and I'm just going to pull the loop on my hook up to the height of a double crochet, or right about it. Then I'll secure the top of that loop with my finger and yarn over with the loop itself. Then I go into that first stitch, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Now I can yarn over again, pull through that loop and behind the yarn over, and finally release that top loop on top of the hook, yarn over and pull through those last 2 loops, and that is my chainless starting double crochet. If you'd like to see separate tutorials for that, I absolutely do have those on my YouTube channel as well as on mooglyblog.com. So however you'd like to do it, the main thing is to put a double crochet right in that first stitch. It can be a chain 3 if that's what you prefer. After you've got that double crochet, and we want to go ahead and mark it, it's the first stitch of the row, then we move on to the part of the pattern here for row 2 that starts with the asterisk. So that's our repeat. So our repeat begins chain 1, so we'll do that. Skip the next stitch, so we're going to skip the second one. Remember, if you chained 3, that's considered work. So we skip that second one, and then we are going to double crochet in the next stitch. So that'd be that third stitch in the row below. Just like so. So you might have a chain 3 there, you might have a stacked single crochet, whatever you like to do for your first double crochet. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet in the next. And then our repeat is chain 1, skip 1, double crochet in the next. And that will take us almost all the way across here. Actually, it will take us all the way across for this particular row. So we chain 1, skip the next stitch, double crochet in the stitch after that. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet in the stitch after that. And that should take you all the way across for row 2. So this is a smaller version of what your row 2 should look like. You can see there I put my double crochet in that very last stitch. So now I can go ahead and take that stitch out and I'll set it aside and I'll put it in the first stitch here as we begin row 3. So to make row 3, we're going to start this time with a chain 1, and now we half double crochet right back in that first stitch. And we can go ahead and put our stitch marker right in that stitch. And the vast majority of our rows for the rest of this pattern are now going to begin and end with a half double crochet. So that is also a good visual hint to help you as you continue through this pattern. So continuing row 3, we've got our half double crochet in the first stitch, and now we're ready for the repeat for this row. And the repeat for this one, very similar. Chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, and now we're going to half double crochet in the top of the double crochet. So we put a half double crochet right in the top of that double crochet, chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, half double crochet in the top of the double crochet. And we just continue doing that all the way across for row 3. The only thing is, when we get to that very last stitch, which, because I'm on my tiny sample here, I'm already there. You'll have, obviously, a few more stitches to make. But when we get to that last stitch, we're going to be, let me try that again there. There we go. We're going to be changing colors for row 4. So don't finish that stitch when you get to the point where you're ready for your final yarn over and pull through. We want to set that aside and pull up color B. So I want to point out, if we look back at the written pattern here, row 4 is where we begin our 4-row repeat that is going to take us through the majority of this stitch pattern here and through this project. So our repeat begins with row 4 and runs through row 7. So we're going to repeat rows 4 through 7, ending on a row 5 repeat. So we will work through 25 rows total, but we just keep going through those And our last row here on our first panel is going to be a row 5 repeat. But for now, we're on row 4. So let me set this back aside and pick back up our project because we still need to finish row 3. I've got my new color sort of prepped for me here. I pulled out a few yards or feet of it, so I've got it ready to go. And I'll sort of set these apart so they don't get tangled. If these two yarns start to twist as I crochet, I'll just take a moment and straighten them out as I go. So to finish off row 3, we just go ahead, take our end of color B, yarn over, and pull through to finish that stitch. There we go. If it pulls up a little bit, you can pull down on those ends and sort of straighten it out. And I'll just leave that end out there. I can weave that in when I come back. We're going to leave our color A yarn attached, and we're just going to pull it up along the side as we worked. We're going to float that along the sides, and then those little floats or carries along the side will get covered when we work some other parts of the pattern. So don't worry about those for right now. Just let those other ends hang out there, and now we're going to be working with our color B to make row 4. So for row 4, we start with a chain 1. First we need to turn there and half double crochet in that first stitch. So I should have a stitch marker a couple rows down here. There it is, waiting for me. So I can grab that since that's our new first stitch of the row here. There we go. You can see if you put one in the first stitch of each row, it actually puts one in the first and last stitch of each row. It makes it very easy to follow along. So now I have my half double crochet in the first stitch, and now we're ready to begin the repeat here for row 4. And this is where we start using that really unique woven treble stitch. If you look at the previous 2 rows, that row 1 is just kind of a setup row. That gets us started. Rows 2 and 3 is where we're kind of helping to start set up our pattern. And you can see in the previous 2 rows, we've made sort of a mesh with spaces stacked above each other. And when we work the woven treble stitch, we're going to be working into those spaces and then into the stitch that we skipped below down here. So how do we make this woven treble? We're going to yarn over twice. Remember, when you yarn over, it should always come towards you unless the pattern specifies otherwise. A standard yarn over is over the hook towards you. Then we're going to take our hook. We're going to insert it into this first chain space in front of this chain 1. Come behind that chain 1 right there, and we're going to go into that stitch. Now, we still want to go into the stitch from the front. We don't want to come in the stitch from behind. We bring our hook down and put it right into the front of that stitch. So you can see I'm just going to flip my work over as I do that, and I can see where my hook is now through that stitch. What I want to do is I want to pull the top of that stitch. See how I've got my hook turned now so the actual hooky portion of my hook can grab those 2 loops at the top of the stitch? I'm going to hold on to those 2 loops using my hook and peel off that other stitch that's in the way. See up here, this chain 1 space? I'm just going to peel it right off my hook. When I do that, all that's on my hook now is the active loop, my 2 yarn overs, and I've pulled the top of that single crochet stitch way down there all the way through. So now you can see where the end of my yarn is. I can yarn over and pull a loop up through that stitch. And now I can finish my treble crochet, and I'm not enclosing any of those chain spaces in the stitch. If you didn't follow all that, don't worry, I'll be making a whole bunch more. We finish our treble as usual. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. So now, when I come back to my work and sort of straighten everything out, you can see that treble crochet is now woven through those chain spaces. It's not enclosing any of them, and it's worked into that skipped stitch underneath. So to continue this row, we chain 1, skip the next stitch, and we work another woven treble in that next set of chain spaces there. So we're going to skip those stitches and come over here to these spaces. So let's do it again. Yarn over twice towards me. We're going to go into this chain space. So in front of this chain 1 right here, in this one, come from behind that one, put our hook right into the front of that stitch underneath. So let's do that again. I've yarned over twice. We go in front, behind, and through the front of that skipped stitch. We use our hook to hold on to those loops so that we can peel everything else out of the way. You could also think of it as pulling that stitch forward. Go ahead and pull your yarn ends out of the way. All you should have now is your active loop, your 2 yarn overs, and the top of that stitch. You can see where our yarn is coming out right now. We yarn over, pull up through that stitch, and now we can finish the treble. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Let's do it again. Chain 1. Go ahead and straighten it out if you need to. Skip the next set of stitches, find the next set of chains there. Yarn over twice. In front of that chain space, behind the one underneath, and right through that stitch, the skipped stitch underneath. Hold on to that stitch. Get all the strands out of the way there, and then you can just peel that chain 1 space back and away. Then you can find your yarn again, yarn over and pull a loop up through that stitch. Now you can finish off your treble crochet. And we just keep doing that all the way across until we run out of those chain spaces. But remember to chain 1 and skip the next ones. Yarn over twice. You can always straighten out your fabric if it helps you find where you are. There's the next ones we're going to skip. So there is our last on our little sample here. I'm already at my last one. So I've got my yarn overs ready to go. I go in, pop back out, and then right through that stitch. Hold on to the top of it. Move everything out of the way if you need to. Peel that chain 1 space back. Then we can grab our yarn. So we yarn over and pull up our loop. And then finish our treble crochet. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. And we can straighten our fabric back out here. Let me get my hook out of the way a little bit. And you can really see how we have woven those trebles through those chain spaces. So when you come to the end and you've worked in that last chain space there, you're going to want to finish up. We aren't going to chain 1 and skip 1 again. We're going to go straight after that woven treble into a half double crochet in that very last stitch. There we are. The stitch marker doesn't want to share the space right now. So if that's happening, you just pull that right on out for a moment. We know where we're going. And there we go. So in a much smaller version here, this is what it should look like at the end of row 4. So now we're ready to make row 5. Row 5, we chain 1 and turn, or turn and chain 1, however you prefer to do it. Half double crochet right in that first stitch again. I've got my stitch marker ready and waiting for it here. So I'll put my stitch marker right in the top of that first stitch. There we go. And then I want to basically start creating the second row of the mesh in this color. So when we look at our previous row, we don't have a chain 1, skip 1 right away. Remember, we're in color B, so we're going to work a half double crochet right in the top of that woven treble. And then we chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, half double crochet in the top of the woven treble. Chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, half double crochet in the top of the woven treble. And for row 5, that's what we're going to do all the way across. But when we get to that final stitch, we're going to want to change colors again. So you can see, because I've got a little sample here, I've gotten there pretty quickly. You can go ahead and pause and catch up if you need to. Here I am. All that's left is that last half double crochet there with our stitch marker in it. Remember, we're not going to chain 1 in between. In color B, we've got 2 stitches next to each other and then the chain space. So we go right from that half double crochet to a half double crochet in that very last stitch. Let's get that stitch marker out of the way here. Yarn over and pull up our loop. And now we're going to switch back and finish this stitch with color A. So to do that, we simply drop color B. Just let it fall right to the back of your fabric. I was almost out of yarn on that color anyway. There we go. Then I'm going to just come back down here and take a moment, sort through your ends, find the one that's still attached to the skein. There we are. I'm going to just switch it out there, put it on top. Now, I am going to take a moment and just sort of look through all my ends here, make sure everything's right where I want it, all the tension's good. And then, again, I'm going to drop that color B, yarn over with color A, and I'm going to really gently, with not trying to pull hard on here, but not trying to let it be really loose either, just sort of keep a really even tension, yarn over and pull through to finish the stitch with the new color. And sometimes I'll do this. I go back and forth. I just call it zhuzhing the stitch. I don't know. It's not an official term. It's just what I call it. But this sort of lets it get the right tension level. You can see it's running along the side here. It's not loose. It's not hanging out like this. That would be difficult to cover with a border because it's going to gap and cause issues and try and stick out. We don't want that, but we also don't want it so tight that, it's pulling our stitches down and squishing the end of our row. So if I just kind of go back and forth with this a little bit, make sure the stitch below it is the right size, give that a little tug if I need to, and get it to where it feels good, where it's running along the side, it's not tight, it's sort of just right. We're looking for that Goldilocks zone. With that done, we're then officially ready to begin row 6. So for row 6, we start again with a chain 1 and a half double crochet right in that very first stitch. There we go. So I'm going to take a moment and put my stitch marker in the top of that first stitch. Then, going back to our instructions here, and we can kind of start to read our work. We know where we want to work woven trebles in those chain 1 spaces. There's another stitch there. We're going to chain 1 and skip it. So we chain 1, skip the next set of stitches there. That brings us to a set of chain spaces. We can put a woven treble in it. So we yarn over twice. Same thing. In front of that chain 1 space, behind that chain 1 space. And now we're going to find the stitch that we skipped below, which is going to be the top of that half double crochet right under here. Now, half double crochets can be a little tricky. They're a really popular stitch, but they can be one of the trickier stitches to read. And that is because when we change rows, let me actually move this out of the way so we can get a better visual here. When we're working in half double crochets, this is what they look like from the wrong side. This is what they look like from the right side. This is just the side that we're making our stitches from. It doesn't really indicate what's the right or wrong side of the pattern, just the side we're looking at while we're making the stitches. So when we're making our stitches on the right side, it's really easy to see here's the top of that stitch. These are the top 2 loops of that half double crochet stitch. But when we flip it over, just because of the nature of the way the half double crochet is made, it can be very easy for us visually to think, oh, that's the top of that stitch, where actually it looks from this side more like it's a chain. This looks more like the top half double crochet. But from this side, if I put my hook right in that one, the one that looks like a chain, and I flip it over, you'll see that loop, those 2 loops are actually the top of that stitch. So as you are working into those skipped half double crochets, it is fine to flip your work over every once in a while and be like, am I in the top of that half double crochet or am I in that chain? Very, very normal thing. I have to do it half the time myself when I get going and, wait, where am I? Which am I in the loop or am I in the top of the chain? So with all that said, we've got our half double crochet, our chain 1, we're skipping 1. Let's work a woven treble down into that skipped half double crochet all the way down there. So once again, we yarn over twice towards us, come in from the front, from behind, and then the top of that half double crochet. And you'll see before we turned it over to poke that through, now is a good time to check. Are we in the top of that half double crochet? Yes, we are. So same thing as before, we can move everything out of the way, make sure we're holding on to the top of that stitch, and peel that chain 1 space out of the way. From here on out, unless you're starting a new panel, sort of starting the pattern over again, all your color A woven trebles will be worked into color A half double crochets, whereas your color B woven trebles will be worked into color B half double crochets. So just a little check to help you as you continue. Other than that, we just finish it off just like the ones we did before. Chain 1, skip the next set of stitches, and do it again. Yarn over twice, in, back out, then in the half double crochet below. And you can always turn it over to check and make sure you're in the top of that half double crochet. We pull that stitch through, peel off the chain 1 space, however you decide to look at it, yarn over and pull up our loop, and finish our treble. There we are, chain 1. I've got one more set of holes here, so I've got one more woven treble I can make in this row. So we yarn over twice. Remember, we go in front, behind, and then in the front of the stitch. Make sure we got the right part of the stitch there. Peel off that chain 1 space so that we can get to the top of that stitch without it being in the way. And then we can finish our treble crochet. And then we need to go back to our pattern, or we can look at our work here. We see there are 2 stitches here at the end. So that means we're going to need to chain 1 and skip 1 so we can put a half double crochet right in that final stitch. There we are. And with that, we have finished row 6. So for row 7, we're basically repeating row 3. It's going to be another one of those half double crochet rows to set up our mesh. So let's do it together. We chain 1 and half double crochet in that first stitch. We've got our stitch marker ready and waiting for us. And then we can either follow the written instructions or we can look at the work in front of us. What's below? A chain 1, skip 1 space. So that's what we're going to do again. Chain 1, skip the chain space. Now we half double crochet in the top of that woven treble. Chain 1, whoop, get that back on the hook there. Chain 1, skip the next chain 1 space, half double crochet in the top of the next woven treble. So we just continue that all the way across here for row, that would be row 7. Of course, it's a half double crochet row. They all start at this point with end with half double crochet, but when we've got half double crochet all the way across, that's another clue or hint. Then when we get to the end here, we'll chain 1, skip 1, and when we work in that last stitch for our final half double crochet, we'll be changing colors again. So we stop with those 3 loops on our hook, drop color A in this case, and now we want to come back and find that end of color B, the one that's still attached to the skein, yarn over and pull that loop through. And then we can give it a little zhuzh as well until it feels like it's just the right height. And those rows 4, 5, 6, and 7 are the repeat. You keep doing those through row 25, ending on a row 5 repeat. All right, so here you can see I've added another row 4 and row 5, ending with color A, and I went ahead and cut color B. I just leave a good 4 to 6 inch tail here so I can weave in my ends when I'm done. So now we're going to move on our little sample here to row 26. So we're continuing with color A, and we start with a chain 1 and a half double crochet right in that first stitch. So I will go ahead and put my stitch marker right in the top of that stitch. There we go. And then we are going to single crochet in the top of this next stitch. Like so. This is a different one. This one's a little different from the pattern that we've established. Then we're going to woven treble in this next set of spaces here. So we yarn over twice in front of that one, behind the next one. Make sure we get right in the top of that half double crochet and pull that through and finish our treble crochet just as before. There we are. We can straighten that back out as needed. And then, rather than chain 1 and skip 1, we single crochet in the next one. This is a row to sort of seal up those chain spaces and allow us to make the rest of the bag. So we want a nice sort of solid row here across the top of our bag. So now we've got another set of chain spaces. So we woven treble again. Right into the top of that skipped half double crochet down there. Make sure we get that through. There we go. We can just pull that right through. Oh, looks like I split a stitch. Let me do that one again. It's one of my favorite things about crochet. When you make a mistake, and I make mistakes all the time, they're pretty easy to undo. There we go. Now we've got a clean grab of that stitch. We can pull it through and finish that woven treble as well. So obviously you're going to have a few more repeats of this than I do. But right now, I'm just going right on across, a single crochet in the top of each half double crochet, and of course a woven treble in the top of each skipped half double crochet 3 rows below. So on our little sample here, I've already reached my side. Again, you can pause and catch up if you need to. When we get to the end of the row here, we've got our last 2 stitches, so we put a single crochet in the next one. And then we want to finish with our half double crochet. I'll go ahead and move this stitch marker out of the way at this point as well. There we go. So I am going to actually go ahead and put my stitch marker right in the top of this half double crochet. This brings us to the end of row 26 and the end of our first panel, but we're not going to break our yarn as we continue on to the sides and bottom. All right, so now we're ready to work the sides and bottom of the bag. We've worked row 26, We're not going to flip our work. We're just going to spin it and work down the side, across the bottom, and then up the other side. And then across those stitches again for 4 rows. So for row 1, for the sides and bottom of the bag, we are going to start by chaining 1, and then we're going to work 26 stitches evenly along the side here. We've worked 26 rows, so it should be relatively easy to figure out how to space those. When I do work, the first, should be half double crochet along the side here. We want to work half double crochets. Then I am going to put a stitch marker in the top of this half double crochet as well, just to let me know that this is where these rows end, not right here. Then I'm going to continue to half double crochet evenly down the side. Since we worked 26 rows, you can work a half double crochet in the side of each row. If you are someone who has decided to alter the pattern to make it taller or perhaps shorter, more of a pouch or maybe something really tall like a yoga bag, what you can do is, again, just work evenly and make sure you write down how many stitches you worked along this first side so you can make sure you work the exact same number of stitches along the other side. It's really important that those are the same number of stitches because those are going to be the stitches we use to help attach our back panel, and we need those to be the same number on either side, basically. So I am just working my right down here along the side on my little sample. Again, you'll have quite a few more rows than I do. So if you need to pause and catch up, that's fine. I'm just going to continue working down the side here until I'm in the side of that last row. So on my little sample here, again, I should take a mental note how many I've got here so that I can make sure I work the same number along here. If you're working to the pattern, you should have 26 stitches right along this side. When you get to the bottom, we're not going to increase at all. We want the sides and bottom of our bag to curve back and in towards our bag. So we go straight from working on the sides to working in the bottom of each stitch of row 1. Again, half double crochets. This is where having those 2 loops left for us to work into, because we worked into the underneath loop, can be really helpful. I find that we're having those 2 loops left to work any sort of border or edging into makes the border or edging, try that again, stick a lot closer to the project. It just creates less of a gap there. Never quite understood the physics of it, why it works one way and not the other, but it is definitely an effect I have seen over the years. So since you had 25 stitches across here in each of those rows, you should have 25 stitches across the bottom here. We want to make sure to work in each one right up till we get to that slip knot. There we are. So we should have one more here right along the bottom. And then it's time to work up that other side. So again, however many stitches you worked on this side, you want to make sure you work the same number of stitches along this side and stop right when we get to the top. So as you crochet up that last side, be sure to cover the floats that we carried along the side there. You can push all your ends to the inside of the bag. Don't worry about those till later. We can weave those in when we're done. After you've crocheted up that other side, rows 2 through 4 are pretty simple. We're going to chain 1 and turn, or turn and chain 1, and half double crochet in each stitch across. Remember, we're only going around that U each time. So I like to work 4 rows here of half double crochet, and that gives us a pretty good thickness to the bottom and sides of the bag. But again, if you would like to add more rows or fewer rows, fewer for a flatter bag, more rows for a thicker bag, then absolutely you can do that. Again, you might need some more yarn. We are using our color A here, so you'll almost definitely need a second skein if you add a bunch more rows. However many you do add, I do recommend that you add an even number of rows. It just makes the rest of the pattern a little bit easier to follow. So go ahead and add some more rows here, and I'll see you as we get to the end of row 4 of our bottom and sides of the bag. So here I've worked the sides and bottom of the bag. When you work an even number of rows, you'll end up on the wrong side of the bag here, up on this side. You can see I've marked my last stitch, and I went ahead and broke my yarn. One thing we want to do while we're making row 4, and we'll be working this way around the bag, is we want to put stitch markers into stitch number 26 and 51. Now, I've got a little sample here, so mine's not going to be exactly the same, but essentially, when you mark stitches 26 and 51, they should be real close, not exactly, but real close to being in the two bottom corners of the bag like this. These are going to help us know where to attach our yarn for the second panel of the bag. So make sure when you work that final row, start from that first stitch you make in row 4 there and count out stitches 26 and 51 to put your stitch markers into. All right, so now we want to set up our bag here. We're joining from the right side, but remember it's a bag. So we want sort of all our ends facing up towards us and our nice side facing down. We've curved up and we're going to join to our sides down here. We're going to join to that first marked stitch. So when we worked this way, it was actually your stitch 51, but so now we're reapproaching our piece. This is our first marked stitch right down here on the bottom, and we're going to be rejoining with our color A. So we are going to join to this very first marked stitch down here in our bottom corner with a slip stitch. And don't try and overthink this one. It really does need to be just a slip stitch. Then I'm going to go ahead and get this stitch marker out of the way here. There we go. And now we're going to half double crochet in the next stitch. So going right along the bag here. And I'm going to go ahead and put my stitch marker in this one. This is now the first half double crochet of this row. If you'll remember from our notes, we're talking about those slip stitches that we're going to work up the sides. Those don't count. So we put our slip stitch marker in the first half double crochet of this row. Then, to continue row 1 of the second panel of the bag, we single crochet in the next 23 stitches. A little bit familiar to that first row, right? So we single crochet in 23 stitches, which should take us right up to, but not into, that second marked stitch, which you should have in your stitch 51. So I counted out on my little sample here. You can see we put our single crochet right before the second marked stitch. In that second marked stitch, we mark another half double crochet. And now we're going to move that stitch marker up to this stitch. There we go. So we've got the top of that half double crochet marked. And then we are going to slip stitch in the next 2 stitches, working up the side of our bag. These slip stitches don't count in our stitch count, and we're not going to work back into them. They're sort of acting as stitches that attach us to the side of our bag, and they're going to be taking the place of chaining 1 for our rows because they're going to work us up our bag. Hopefully it all makes sense here as we continue. So to finish up row 1, we slip stitch in those next 2 stitches. So there's 1 and 2. And with that, we have finished row 1 of the second panel of the bag. So for row 2, we're going to continue again with our color A, and we're going to turn. This is going to feel a little strange. If you want to, you can flip your bag sort of in and out if it makes it easier, but we're going to continue working in rows. So now we're going to half double crochet in the first stitch. We don't need to chain. We slip stitched. That gave us height. Now we're going to half double crochet right back in that first marked stitch. Remember, those slip stitches are not going to count as stitches right now. So we come down to that first marked stitch, get our stitch marker out of the way if we need to, and put a half double crochet right in that stitch. And now we want to move that stitch marker to the top of this half double crochet. It'll make it a whole lot easier to keep track of where you are. Then we're going to start setting up our repeat here. We chain 1, skip the next stitch, and double crochet in the stitch after that. Chain 1, skip the next stitch, double crochet in the stitch after that. Get that through, there we go. Chain 1, skip the next stitch, double crochet in the stitch after that. Chain 1, skip the next stitch. Now just 1 stitch remains. You can see it's our marked stitch again. Yours is going to be a bit wider. You'll have a few more repeats. Once you chain 1 and skip 1, and that brings you to that last marked stitch, we half double crochet in that last marked stitch. We can get that stitch marker out of the way for a second there. Half double crochet in that last marked stitch. Mark the top of that half double crochet you just made. And then we slip stitch in the next 2 stitches along the side. So if you need to take a second, look for the tail from your slip stitch there. You can see that is the stitch we attached to, so we want to go to the next 2. So get through that one the right way. There we go. Slip stitch in the next one. And then in the stitch after that. If you need to, you can go ahead and use another stitch marker in that last slip stitch, or even better, I would go ahead and put it in the next one along the side there. That might help you if you're having trouble figuring out which stitches along the sides you've worked into. When you work that second one, put a stitch marker in the next one, you'll know where you're coming back to. That's your first one along the side when you come back the other direction. Once you've got that done, then we're going to turn and get ready here for row 3. All right, so for row 3, same thing. We don't work into those slip stitches. Those don't count. Down here with the stitch marker, that's our first stitch. That's why the stitch markers here are so important. So we half double crochet right in that first marked stitch. And then we can move that stitch marker right up to the top of the half double crochet we just made. There we go. Pull up a little bit more yarn from my skein. There we go. And now for row 3, we're kind of going back in that stitch pattern that we know from before. The difference is the way we're attaching the sides, but here in the middle, it's what we've been doing before. We chain 1, skip the chain 1, half double crochet in the top of the double crochet. Chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, half double crochet in the top of the double crochet. Chain 1, skip the chain space, half double crochet in the top of the double crochet. And you'll continue that all the way across until again we get to that last chain 1 space. So we chain 1, skip it, half double crochet in the top of that last half double crochet right there. And again, we want to move our stitch marker up, having these first and last half double crochets marked to make it sit so much easier. There we are. And now we look at it again. And this one you can kind of tell this one's pulling up. It's been attached to. So we go to the next one, slip stitch in the next stitch, and the stitch after that. So let's go ahead and make it easier on ourselves and add another stitch marker, not in the one I've attached to, but let's do it in the next one. Now, one thing I forgot to do actually is we need to finish that last stitch right there with color B. Happens all the time. Like I say, I make mistakes too. So rather than cut it out, let's fix it together. I'm going to pull my loop out and I'm going to go ahead and pull back. I'm just going to leave that stitch marker there. I know it's in the right spot. I'm going to pull back to that last stitch and keep an eye on it here. Pull out that last half double crochet and start it again. And now I want to go ahead and pull back in color B. We still want to keep our color changes here on the second side. So again, I just get my end ready, lay it over my hook, and finish that stitch with color B, like so. There we are. So we can give those ends a little tug, make sure we drop the ends we don't need and only have the ones we need in play here. And now we want to use these two, or rather this color, to make those 2 slip stitches along the side. So if you want to, you can kind of tack down those yarns and those slip stitches if you want to, but we can weave in those ends when we're done. So we just want to get our 2 slip stitches here in that color. And now we are ready to make row 4. And we've got our next stitch marked right along the side there. So going back to our written pattern, we once again have our repeat, beginning with row 4, working through row 7. And we're going to continue those until we end on a row 5 repeat. It's just like what we were doing before, but when we get to the ends, we need to do those 2 slip stitches up the side. And then, of course, we don't chain 1 in the beginning of each row because those slip stitches have done the job for us. So let's go ahead and work through this repeat together. I'm ready for row 4. So I'm going to be sure to turn here. And I forgot to mark the top of that last double crochet I made, but luckily I can see right where it is there, the last half double crochet. So I'll go ahead and put my first half double crochet right in the top of that one. Get that stitch marker back in there. And then for row 4, we can go ahead and flip the whole bag wrong side out. Makes it a little bit easier. We can see we've got our chain spaces right away. So we yarn over twice and put a woven treble right in there. Now you can see our bag is wrong side out, but it doesn't matter. We're going to do the exact same stitch the same way. In front, behind, down into that skipped stitch. We can grab it, peel that chain 1 space out of the way, and work our woven treble. Then we know we're going to chain 1, skip the next set of stitches there, find the next set of chain spaces, and work another woven treble. This time we're working into those skipped single crochets down below. There we are. Chain 1, straighten out our work again so we can see where we're at. Make sure we haven't skipped any chain spaces. We're good. There's the next set. So we yarn over twice. In front, behind, and through the front of the stitch. Grab the stitch, peel the other one out of the way, and finish our treble. Chain 1. Skip the next set of stitches. Looks like we've got one more woven treble to make. We've got one more set of chain spaces there. So we yarn over twice, go in front, behind, through that stitch from the front. Pull the stitch to the front out of the way of the other stitches there, and finish our treble. And now, looking at our stitch here, we don't want to chain 1 and skip 1 again. We're on that color B row. The next stitch is a half double crochet. So we now go right into that stitch for a half double crochet. We can move our stitch marker to the top of that stitch. And now, I'm going to get a little bit more yarn pulled up with this color here. Started to run out a little bit. Now we have our 2 slip stitches, and this is where we had that stitch marker waiting for us. You can see this is where that last one was worked in. This is that next free stitch along the side. So using the stitch markers along the sides is totally optional. But if it makes it easier for you, oh, I almost went to the wrong spot. If it makes it easier for you, you can absolutely use them. So we slip stitch in those next 2 stitches along the side. And if you'd like, you can go ahead and mark the next one. And then we're ready to turn, flip our bag the other way around if we want to. And now we're ready for row 5. So again, we don't need to chain 1 or anything. We go straight to half double crochet in that first stitch right there. And now you can tell we're back on that right side of the bag without any of our ends sticking out. There we go. So we can move our stitch marker on up. And like I say, other than the ends, it's just the same stitch pattern we were doing before. We chain 1, skip. Oh, not this time though. We're in color B. Don't chain 1, skip 1 right away. It's why important to also look at our work. We don't have a chain 1, skip 1 there. We've got another stitch. So we put a half double crochet right in the top of that stitch. And then we chain 1 and skip the chain space. Half double crochet in top of the woven treble. Chain 1, skip the chain space, half double crochet in the top of the woven treble, all the way across here for row 5. Now, when we get to the end, since I'm already there on my tiny little sample here, remember we've got a half double crochet in the woven treble, and then immediately half double crochet in that final half double crochet. We've got 2 stitches next to each other at the ends when we're working in color B. So we move our stitch marker right on up to our new end stitch there. And, oh, it's a color switching row. I almost forgot again. Let's pull that loop back out, make that half double crochet one more time. We want to remember to drop that color and find our end of color A. Should be right on the inside of our bag. We're going to do the same thing. We don't have to worry so much about hiding this time because it's on the inside of our bag, but we still want to make sure that our strands aren't overly tight or are overly loose. So we can just pull, if I can find it there, there we go, pull back on our different strands and get that stitch looking nice and neat. As soon as you've got that stitch looking the way you'd like with your loops and the new color sticking out here, we can go right on to those slip stitches along the side. There's 1, move our stitch marker. There's 2. And we can put our stitch marker right in the next one, ready and waiting for us if we need it. And then we're ready for row 6. We turn at the end of row 5. You can flip your bag out wrong side again if it makes it easier. I like to do it. Half double crochet right in that first marked stitch down here. There we are. Move that stitch marker on up. You can see I've got a lot of red stitch markers all together here. Let's bring in another color. Let's bring in a blue one to mark our first stitch of the row. You can use the colors of your stitch markers if you've got multicolored ones to your own advantage, right? Put those to work. So now we're back to color A here. So we are back to our stitch pattern. We know the stitch pattern. We've got our half double crochet in the first stitch. The next thing we see is a stitch, so we must chain 1 and skip it. Then we're going to have a woven treble, in that next set of chain spaces right here. So we go in front, behind, and find that skipped half double crochet down below. Same thing as before, we peel off that chain 1 space, give ourselves some space to make our treble crochet. Chain 1 and skip 1, just as we did before, and find that next space. Make sure I did that the right way. There we go. Get that stitch, pull it through. Again, you'll have a few more stitches than I do, but not too many. I think in the bag at this point, you only end up with 13 stitches and 12 chain spaces, so it's not too bad. But here I am on my small sample with my last woven treble for this row. So of course we chain 1, skip 1, half double crochet in the last. We can move our stitch marker on up to our new half double crochet here at the end. And then we've got our side stitch marker ready and waiting for us. We know that's where we're going to put our first slip stitch. So there's one, and then our second one in the next one. And we can leave our stitch marker behind for us right there. Then we're ready for the last row of our repeat, row 7. So you've probably got the idea of where the pattern is going now. For row 7, we're going to turn, and again, you can keep flipping that bag inside out, right side out, whatever works for you. Half double crochet in that first marked stitch. Should be our first half double crochet below here. And again, I want to move my stitch marker on up. Like so. And then, of course, we mimic the row below, but with half double crochets. Chain 1, skip the chain 1 space, half double crochet in the stitch, just as we did before. Of course, it's a half double crochet row, so that means we're going to switch colors when we get to the end. And here we are at the end of row 7. I half double crochet in that last stitch. Stitch marker wants to be in the way this time. So I'm going to yarn over and pull up my loop. And now, because I turned the bag sort of the other way around, we've got our color B ready and waiting for us. We can just pull that right through to finish up that last stitch. Make sure we mark it with our stitch marker. And then, of course, don't want to forget our 2 slip stitches along the side. So I'll get that stitch marker out of the way. Slip stitch number 1, slip stitch number 2, and then I can mark the next stitch. On my little sample, you can see we're nearly at the top, but of course, on your full-size bag, you want to keep repeating rows 4 through 7 till you get to rows 25, ending on a row 5 repeat, which should bring you right to the top of the bag. All right, so here I've worked my repeats of rows 4 and 5 to bring me up through essentially row 25. So here I have finished my row 25, my row 5 rep. You can see I finished with color B. I marked the top of that last stitch, switched to color A for my slip stitches, and my last slip stitch, my second one, was right in that last stitch along the side there. That was the last marked stitch of row 4. So I've just stuffed all my ends inside here, and I went ahead and cut color B. So now we're just going to be working in color A for the rest of our bag. We have one more row. You might remember we had row 26 over here to kind of finish it up. We want to do the same thing on this side. So for row 26 here, we are actually going to be working, you can see here, from the inside of the bag for row 25, which is row 26 rather, so it's a little different than the other one, but we are essentially going to be sort of wrapping up this row the same way. We want to turn and half double crochet right in that first stitch. You can go ahead and mark that first stitch if you'd like. Makes it a little easier sometimes to count in the coming rows, or rounds, I should say. So we half double crochet in the first stitch, and then we'll single crochet in the next stitch, and then we'll work a woven treble in the next set of stitches. Again, we're working from the inside of the bag, so if you want to turn your bag wrong side out, if that makes it easier, that's totally fine. Same thing as before, woven treble, find that unused stitch as below. It's just like the other row 26 we did, where instead of working chain 1 spaces, we are sealing up those chain 1 spaces with single crochets. So after we work a woven treble, rather than chain 1 skip 1, We come back, I work a single crochet in the top of that half double crochet. So that should take us most of the way here across row 26. So let's go ahead and finish it up, and I'll see you as we get to the end. So after we've worked all the way across there, then we go ahead and turn, and now we're going to work the top of the bag in rounds all the way around just with our color A. So to begin round 1, we chain 1, and then we're going to work our half double crochet in each stitch across the second panel. So we can grab a stitch marker and put our stitch right in there. And you should have 25 stitches, I believe, on your front or your back panel here, your second panel that we've made. So now we're just half double crocheting in the top of each one of those stitches of row 26 that we made. You should be on the right side of the bag right now with all your ends sort of tucked to the inside. Again, you can weave those in when we're all done. Now on my little guy here, obviously I'm going to get there a lot faster because I don't have 26 stitches, but we can also take that stitch marker out, get it out of the way. That would be my 25th stitch, I guess it would be. And then we are going to continue by working half double crochet in the side of each row of the sides when we made the sides and bottom. However many rows, if you did 2, you did 4, 6, 8, however many, you'll want to work a half double crochet in the side of each of those rows. I happen to only do 2. So there's 1 and 2 right across the sides there. And then, of course, we're just going to crochet across row 26 from our first panel. That's why it's handy to have that stitch marker still there waiting for us. We can pull that out of the way now and just go right in there. It helps us just know, okay, we're going to the right next spot. So now we just half double crochet our way across this row. We're around here, across the top of our first panel of the bag. Again, you should have a total of 25 stitches here. And then we'll get to that next marked stitch here. Get that out of our way. And now we've just got that last little side panel there. Again, however many rows, you should work that many stitches across the top of this side. Let me get that end out of the way there. There's 1 and 2. And any extra stitch markers can come out. That should bring us right back to our first stitch of round 1. And we can join right in that top first stitch there with a slip stitch. And there we've gone all the way around the top of our bag for round 1. All right, so as you can see here, I put a stitch marker in the first and last stitch of round 1 so that I make sure I don't work into that slip stitch. I don't want to end up counting it as one of my stitches. For your round 1, you should have a total of 58 stitches. So now we're ready for round 2, which is going to have 54 stitches and 4 chains. We're going to create some chain spaces on either side for our purse or bag. The great thing about this design, and when it's worked in rows like this, is that we don't have to worry about those chain spaces getting offset or spinning around the bag because we're working back and forth in rows. Our rows should end up really nicely here. That said, if you're someone who decides to add a bunch of rows to the top before you add the holes for your handle, then it may skew it a little bit, so you'll need to watch for that. If you're following along with the written pattern as is, it shouldn't be an issue. So let's go ahead and do that right now. For round 2 of the top of the bag, we start with a chain 1, and then we're going to single crochet in the third loop of the first 26 stitches. So that's going to take us most of the way here along this first panel. So how do we do that? Let's go ahead and get this stitch marker out of the way. And now, as it says, we want to single crochet in the third loop of those stitches. Now, these were half double crochet stitches. So if we look at a half double crochet stitch really carefully from the front, you can see there is an almost it's a diagonal, but we call it a sort of a horizontal bar right there. That is created from the yarn over. If I do a half double crochet here really slowly, let's watch and see where that yarn over goes. To make a half double crochet, we yarn over, go into a stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. Okay. Now again, let's keep an eye on that yarn over right there. When we yarn over and pull through, you see how that yarn over creates that loop right there. In the back, it creates a similar one. Let me flip it over here. We have the top of these are the top 2 loops of our stitches right there. So right there, that is that yarn over loop. And that is the loop we want to send our hook under when we single crochet under that third loop. So I'm all set up. I've got my chain 1, so I've got my height. We're doing single crochet, so we don't have to yarn over it all. We come right down and find that third loop. We want to come from the top, yarn over and pull up our loop, and we can finish our single crochet. Let's go ahead and mark that one, and then we'll do a few more together. There we go. That first one often is the trickiest one to find. Something about the joining with the slip stitch, I think, sort of moves that loop a little bit. After that, it does get easier, and you'll tell you're on the right track if those top 2 loops are pushed forward towards you. So we go right to the next one, and we just flip it over. Look for those top 2 loops. Look for the one right back there, right behind it. That's the one we grab, pull a loop up through it, yarn over and pull through 2. And now you can see those top 2 loops of the stitch are pushed forward. Why are we doing this? It's purely decorative. If you do not like working into the 3rd stitch, if that's not a look you enjoy or a stitch you enjoy making, you can just work a standard round of single crochets under both of the top 2 loops. Or if you'd like, you could do it under just the back loop only. That would create a similar effect, a little different, but quite similar. So since I don't have, the exact same number of stitches here, we're going to just work across this first panel for the demo, but you'll want to count out 26 stitches like that. Now that I've done a few, you can really see the effect that working in that 3rd loop has, pushing those top 2 loops forward. So when you get to the point where you've made 26 stitches, then we make our first loop for the first side of our handle. Very simply, we chain 2. We're going to skip 2 stitches, should be the middle 2 stitches along the side panel here, and then we go right back to it. Single crochet in that 3rd loop, this time of the next 27 stitches. So 1, well, I'm not going to count, you get the idea. But we just single crochet in that 3rd loop until we get back over to that other side. So let's keep on doing that, and I'll see you when we get ready to make that 2nd loop. So after that chain 2 and skip 2, you will single crochet in the 3rd loop of the next 27 stitches. Should we bring you over to those 2 center rows of your side panel here, where you'll chain 2, skip 2, and then you should have 1 more stitch that you can work a back loop only, or a 3rd loop rather, single crochet into, and then you can slip stitch to that first single crochet made, and that will get you all the way around here for round 2. So all we've got left now is round 3, and if you're making the full-size bag, you're probably about out of your color A. So I kept round 3 short and simple, so we could finish up our yarn and have a nice solid place to put our handles. If you've got an extra skein of yarn, if you've made the bag bigger or smaller, you can keep adding more rounds here if you'd like, for decoration and to make it a little sturdier. So for round 3, we're simply going to back loop only single crochet in each stitch and chain around. Now, whatever stitch you join to, that can be kind of tricky. I like to just go right to the next one and start working my back loop only slip stitches right there. So back loop only means we're going to look at those top 2 loops of the stitch rather than going under the top 2 like we normally would or looking for some special loop in the back. We just go under the loop that's furthest away from us. That is considered the back loop. So we just back loop only single crochet all the way around. And I like to do this in the chains as well. And here in this case, I would say do it into the chain, not the chain space. Why do I say that? Well, it's going to make it line up a little bit better. And I also think for the purposes of this bag, it's just going to look a little bit neater. Now, if you prefer, you can go into the chain space instead. Just go ahead and put 2 single crochets right in that chain space. But I'm going to go ahead and do it in the back loop only. I think it's going to be just as secure and sturdy, and it's just going to give it a little bit of a neater look. And the nice thing is, since it's only 2 chains on each side, we don't have a big long line to do it for, so it's not so hard to do it for just 2 chains. And just continue to back loop only, single crochet, all the way around rather. And as you can see, that gives us a nice sturdy place to attach our handles when we're all done. So when we get to the end of round 3, you can go ahead, join, weaving your ends, and pick out the perfect handle for your Queens Crossbody Bag. And that's how to crochet the Queens Crossbody Bag. Remember, you'll find the free pattern as well as right and left-handed video tutorials on mooglyblog.com. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.